Yeah, and I don't have to announce it or anything, right? Just do it. I don't have to announce it. All right. I call this meeting to order as the 2016 annual business meeting of the MidAmerica region of our Unitarian Universalist Association. Please join me in our opening words, which describe the purpose of the MidAmerica region and which are printed in the middle of page 2 of your delegate packet or on the screen here. The purpose of the MidAmerica region is to support, enrich, and extend Unitarian Universalism in the defined geographic area. The region shall work in collaboration with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Thank you, and thank you, Sharon, for lighting the chalice. Welcome to the MidAmerica region annual business meeting. I'm Eric Huffer, the president of the board of the MidAmerica region. This will be the third time we have gathered to conduct business as a region, and only the second time we have all been in one place. Thank you for being here. I have appointed Eric Cooperstein as our parliamentarian today to help us with any glitches or misspeaks that I might have up here, or any questions that arise. The MidAmerica region is made up of 186 UUA-affiliated congregations spread across 13 states, from North Dakota to Kentucky, Michigan to Kansas. We have certified adult membership of just over 29,000 and around 10,000 children in our congregations. There are 10 congregations in the region with over 500 members, making up more than a quarter of our membership. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are 128 congregations out of that 186, nearly 70%, that have fewer than 150 members. That's a lot of real estate and a wide range of types of congregations. Yet here we are, each with our own gifts and challenges, working together to move our faith movement forward. Thank you again for being here and for all that you do in our work as well. I'd like to ask our MidAmerica Region Secretary, Kyrie Bach, to come forward and present our credentials report. We have Kyrie with our...
She's still counting.
Still counting. Okay, well, it's
You'll come back.
Well, it's difficult to move forward until we establish our quorum. So I apologize for that. Tap dance? Sure. We have, yes, only just one second.
Yes?
While we're waiting as well, we're going to do a song here in a second. That's a great suggestion. Thank you very much for improvising. We do have some copies of the delegate packets. For those of you that need one, please raise your hand. We only have a few, 100 or so share. And yes, and go ahead, ma'am.
Go ahead. All right, this is call and response. Microphone, please.
Use the mic. Turn it on. There's a switch on it.
All right. This is call and response. I will sing, and you will sing what I sang. And when I rise, I will rise up like a bird, gracefully. And when I fall, I will fall down like a leaf, gracefully, without regret. Do you want to do it one more time so you can remember it and take it home and share it? It's pretty simple. And when I rise, I will rise up like a bird, gracefully. And when I fall, I will fall down like a leaf, gracefully, without regret. So may it be.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping into the breach. So now we do have our secretary, and I invite Kyrie forward to determine whether we have a quorum.
All right, hi, I'm Kyrie Bach, the secretary, and I can report that there are 181 delegates representing over 29 congregations, the final count to be determined, from 13 states. I affirm that we have a quorum present for the conduct of this business meeting.
Thank you, Kyrie. So our next agenda item is the approval of the rules of procedure. And I will ask MidAmerica Board Member Tom Summerfield to make the appropriate motion. Tom? Dave, would you mind? Dave, would you mind doing it? No. Everybody's bailing on me.
I move that we adopt the rules of procedure.
Do I have we have a second from Kathy Burek? Thank you. Is there any discussion of the proposed rules? Hearing none, looks like we're ready for a vote. You should have your pretty pink voting cards, and get those ready. All in favor of adopting the rules of procedure, please raise your voting cards. Excellent. Any opposed? Looks good. I guess we need to ask if there's any abstaining, just for the record. Okay, great. Thank you. And the motion carries. Rules of procedure have been adopted and will help us with our meeting today. Thank you. I now invite Brian Bach, representing the MidAmerica Region Nominating Committee, to come forward and present the Nominating Committee's report. As Brian's coming forward, I ask you to please join me in expressing our great appreciation for the committee and its work on behalf of our region.
Hello, my name is Brian Bach. I'm from the Black Hills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm here representing the MidAmerica Region Nominating Committee and here to present the 2016 slate of candidates. The Nominating Committee began our work in the fall of 2015. We ran into a small issue of having an old contact list of ministers and congregational leaders. So we sent off lots of emails to probably the wrong people to begin with. Luckily, those were forwarded on, and we ended up getting a number of good candidates, a lot of good candidates for the roles. We will ask that starting this summer, there'll be some nominations. We'll be reaching out for candidates to place in the Unistar Camp Foundation Board. So I think it's all of us that need to be looking for good, diverse leadership, and I would ask that it's not the nominating committee specifically, but all of us in our role to look for good candidates for board positions across the region. It is my pleasure to introduce the current nominating committee. Some are here, some are not. Case DeWitt is the chair. He's from the UU Congregation of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Tammy Lemmer, the UU Church of Greater Lansing, Michigan. The Reverend Barbara Childs, Church of the Larger Fellowship. Kate Daniels, Quincy Unitarian Church, Quincy, Illinois. Robert Gagley, Carbondale UU Fellowship of Carbondale, Illinois. And then myself, Brian Bach. We thank the Reverend Barbara Childs for her work on the committee. She is stepping down from her post, retiring from her post. And then one last thing I want to ask or mention to you is that this last November, one of our committee members passed away. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask for a short moment of silence in the memory of Deanne Pryor. Thank you very much. The 2016 candidates, slate of candidates for the Board of Trustees, and these are 3-year terms. They are, do we have slides of, okay. Yeah, so unfortunately, this is the best looking guy here, really. No, I'm joking, of course. A new candidate, Brian Bach from the Black Hills UU Fellowship of Rapid City, Treasurer. Incumbent Kyrie Bach, no relation, of the Unitarian member, or Unity Temple UU congregation in Oak Park, Illinois, Secretary. Newcomer, the Reverend Sarah Oglesby Dunnigan, the UU Fellowship of Topeka, Kansas, member at large. The 2016 slate of candidates for the MidAmerica Nominating Committee are: new is the Reverend Brian Chenoweth of the UU Church of Lexington, Kentucky, 2-year term. Incumbent, Kate Daniels, Quincy Unitarian Church of Illinois, 2-year term. Incumbent, Case DeWitt, UU Congregation of Fort Wayne, Indiana, 2-year term. Newcomer, Kay Slama, UU Church of Wilmar, Minnesota, 1-year term. Newcomer, the Reverend Martin Wolf of Abraham Lincoln UU Congregation in Springfield, Illinois, 2-year term. The 2016 slate of candidates for the Midwest Unitarian Universalist Conference Directors are, and these are 3-year terms: incumbent, Kathy Wire, First UU Church, St. Louis, Missouri. Newcomer, Barbara Gutsch, UU Fellowship of Salina, Kansas. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. While Brian's returning to his seat, let me ask and invite any of our members, other members of the nominating committee that are here to stand. I want to thank you all again for your work. Thank you very much. So our bylaws include other options for nomination, and no other nominees have exercised those options. I invite a motion to elect the slate of nominees as presented by the nominating committee. Where was that? Okay. And a second?
Holly Peterson, First Unitarian Society, Minneapolis.
Thank you both. So, looks like we're ready to vote on this motion. Excuse me. So please get your voting cards ready again. And their election just requires a simple majority for the slate. So all in favor of electing these candidates for these positions, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Any opposed? There, I count 1. Okay. Did you get that, Kyrie? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. The motion carries. The slate of nominees presented by the nominating committee has been elected. Thank you. Let's thank these folks for their willingness to serve and offer them our congratulations. So I would like to invite the Reverend Mary Catherine Moore of our UUA's Stewardship and Development Office to come forward and share a brief expression of appreciation. Thank you.
Good morning, MidAmerica. I'm Mary Catherine, and I'm so happy to be with you. The first thing I want to say is MidAmerica. Wow! I have had the pleasure and privilege of spending the last couple of days with some of your ministers. Great worship, insightful reflections. I want to come back. What a wonderful group of colleagues. And also with my colleagues, your wonderful staff. A shout out to our MidAmerica staff who live here and work with you. And of course, I'm delighted for this chance to meet some of you lay leaders from the wonderful MidAmerica region. You're doing some very exciting things. I am really impressed with the way you are leading us, so thank you, and it's an honor to be with you. My primary purpose for being here is to say thank you. My role as Director of Stewardship and Development for our Unitarian Universalist Association gives me this privilege all the time to thank people for their generosity to our faith, for all the things that you offer that make this possible. But in particular, I want to talk some about our APF, our annual program fund, and your district dues that are such an important way that you support our larger faith. Congregational support through APF and our district dues is the fulfillment of a promise that's already been made. I'm sure that you have this portion of your bylaws, our bylaws, memorized. It says, a congregation becomes a member upon acceptance by the Board of Trustees of the association of its written application for membership, in which it subscribes to the principles of and pledges to support the association. Our principles and purposes close with this promise. As free congregations, we enter into covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. The annual program fund and our district dues are a material embodiment of this support. So I was going to talk some about what it means and how we do that and what difference it makes. And Elizabeth Wynn stopped me after their answers to some of your questions and said, there was one that really you ought to answer. And I took a deep breath. So one of you wrote on your card for our keynotes the question, something like this. She didn't have it in front of her, but she said it was something like this. If we give more money to the UUA and to our district, will that mean more will be done for youth and young adults and for racial justice? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Not a simple question, particularly. My first and a little bit flip answer that came to my mind was, if all of our congregation gave at the honor level, contributed to our UUA and our district what is asked, we would be rocking youth, young adults, and racial justice. What I want to say as well is that, and I believe that you are aware of this, our UUA has as a priority work with youth and young adults and this work for racial justice. And your dues and APF support 3 areas of work that the UUA does. And I just want to describe them briefly, and I want you to listen for the ways that these priorities can and do show up in these 3 different areas. First and foremost is our work to support our congregations. You maybe have heard the phrase that's come into use, that we need the UUA to be relentlessly useful. And the UUA wants to be relentlessly useful to our congregations and our emerging ministries. So that's the first thing. The second is our UUA understands a very important role that it plays in amplifying our moral voice in the larger world. And finally, and listen here especially, our UUA believes that one of its most important pieces of work is to protect our history and to protect our future. Your gifts to the annual program fund and district dues make all of this possible. And we appreciate all of you and all that you are doing in your support. I hope you know that when you write those checks, and some of them you mail to Boston, you're actually sending support to the congregations within MidAmerica and the congregations in the Southern region and in New England. You're supporting each other through this financial support and also these larger overarching purposes of our association. For all of this, we need one another, and only together in our full strength can we amplify the best of Unitarian Universalism? So we are trying to get the word out about this important work and the difference it makes. And I know that some folks in your congregation no doubt are saying the UUA, what? And we want to help you, help them understand what a difference it makes and how we're connected to one another. And we've developed a new team of volunteers that's helping us with this work, the Generosity Network. And Neil Lichtman is the co-chair of that, and Eric Huffer is a member of the core team. Are there other members of the Generosity Network present? Krista, thank you. We're looking for folks who would love to join us in this work of talking to congregational leaders about our association and the covenant that we share. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, please grab Neil or Krista or Eric. I know that they would share more about this with you. Briefly, I also want to tell you about work that's going on that you may have heard about a little bit. Our board of trustees has appointed a task force to work with the administration to consider new ways to approach APF and district dues. Have you heard that we're considering, and in fact in the South, have tried out a percentage of expenses model as opposed to the per member model? So some have suggested that there are some problems, some challenges with calculating our ask based on your membership. It's a disincentive for membership, right? Some people, I've heard, I don't know if it's really true, that they actually kind of play with the numbers when we use. It could happen. I'm sure it doesn't happen in MidAmerica. So, and there are a number of other factors that are leading us to consider a new way to calculate APF. So your leadership at your congregation, your minister, your president, and I hope your treasurer as well, will be receiving an email from us with a survey just asking you some questions about how it's working for you and how you believe this change might affect you. The task force will make a recommendation to our UUA board in October, and we really want to hear from as many of you as possible about what this might mean for you, and also to answer any questions you have. So please grab me after the meeting anytime today if you have questions. I also invite you to see us at the table. Neil and my colleague Laura Randall will be at the table, and we have your congregational record that is a history of your giving to APF. It's just the APF on this particular record. If you're curious about how your congregation is doing, we'd love to share that with you. And if you would like to talk with us a little bit about how we can help you with your APF contributions, we would love to do that. Now, this is just one of our tools that we've developed, a little simple, silly video, very short, and I'm going to ask that we watch that now, an expression of our thanks for your generosity and the difference it makes. here today to talk about our UUA and to do that with a lot of confidence, following your opportunity to see some of our amazing talent from the UUA here as your keynotes. I hope that you remember Elizabeth and Kenny and Jeremy too, of course, but remember their words and their work and their commitment. And as you're thinking about APF and your district dues, imagine the ways that our partnership can deepen and our work can grow. We need each other. We each have a role to play. Thank you for your faithful vision and ministry.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. I will also remind you that we talk about APF and about dues, that there are opportunities as well with Friends of UUA and Friends of MidAmerica for you as an individual to contribute if you would like. So I would like now to invite Reverend Bill Sasso, Chair of the Learning Network Task Force, to share a report on on the progress of the task force with you now.
Thank you, Eric. How many of you are wondering what the Learning Network Covenant is, or what the Learning Network Covenant Task Force might be? If you are, you can raise your hand and be honest. We're trying to be honest and vulnerable and stuff this week. Good. Well, several years ago, in 2013, when our delegates at these meetings in our predecessor districts voted to form the MidAmerica region, we talked about creating a new era in Unitarian Universalism. How many of you feel like today the Unitarian Universalism you live in is a new era? Raise your hands if you're in the new era. It's okay if you're not. You can be honest. You can be vulnerable. And it looks like we're not all there yet, right? That's why we have a Learning Network Covenant and a Learning Network Covenant Task Force. Last year at this meeting, believing that the new era wasn't quite fully arrived yet and that it could be more things than our region had yet become, our delegates, including perhaps some of you, joined in covenant to learn collaboratively, to explore the possibilities, and to create a vision of the new era together. That covenant is the Learning Network Covenant. We're learning together. A month later, the MidAmerica Region Board created a task force to coordinate this process, or adventure, I might call it, and we are that task force. Up here with me are task force members, and don't stand behind me, stand where they can see you. Over. Come on, not behind, you can stand in front of him, he's not talking. Here, yeah. Yeah, okay. I want you to see the task force members. We have Nancy Combs Morgan, who's a member of our MidAmerica Region consulting team, a UUA employee person. Please give her a hand. We have David Jackaway, who's been passing out things that we'll ask you to complete or give us information, and he'll explain what that's about later. We have Dawn Cooley, who's a member of our MidAmerica Region Board. And we have Shannon Van Langenham, and me, of course, and one member of our task force, Reverend Lisa Friedman, isn't able to be with us here today. What are we? We are seekers. We want you to join us on the quest for the new era. We want your congregations to get involved in the quest for the new era. The quest won't be complete until every one of you can raise your hand when I say, are you living in the new era? As part of our work, we've been thinking about the kinds of wisdom that can guide us on this quest and about the kinds of people who might possess that wisdom. We call these people our stakeholders. And Shannon will now describe them so that you can know how you can be part of the quest too.
Good morning. We are envisioning that all of you, all of us in the region will be somehow impacted by this Learning Network Covenant. And so we were doing some brainstorming about what kinds of people, what kinds of groups, what kinds of congregations, what kinds of communities outside of congregations might be able to benefit from sharing what they can do and from learning what others do best. So I just am going to ask you to raise your hand if you can identify as any of these kinds of people who might be stakeholders. So raise your hand if you're a lay leader, if you're a minister, if you're a DRE, if you are starting in an emerging congregation, if you're in a campus ministry, young adult, if you are involved in a youth group, if you're from an urban congregation, a suburban, rural, music director, fundraising chair, social action leader, music director, small group facilitator, leadership development, board chair. So I think many of you raised your hands more than once. If you raised your hand at all, let me see them now. If any of you that raised your hand. Okay, so we are so glad you're here, and we want to tell you all about this Learning Network Covenant.
And in affirmation of that possibility of what we can realize with one another, just this morning we have covenanted to support, enrich, and extend helping hands to one another. Our precious congregational polity is not just about self-governance of individual congregations, it's about the depth of our relationships, leader to leader, congregation to congregation. We are on fertile ground in MidAmerica, 150 years plus. Imagine those leaders who boldly came to this frontier wanting to bring religious liberty and freedom and exploration and a search for truth and meaning. Think of the prophetic sisterhood. You are here standing on their shoulders. Your opportunity to learn from one another is infinite if you open your hearts to one another. We are simply here to enable your growth, to shepherd your learning. What you can realize is what you can hope for, but let us practice hope with one another.
But we don't want to spend our time with you here today telling you about us. For that, we encourage you to read our report, which was included in the attendee information email and is also available on the MidAmerica website. It has more information about our work, such as our statement of directions and principles. Instead, we want to use this wonderful opportunity of being together with you to hear from you. We have prepared questions, which we will include every time we talk to the various stakeholder groups that were mentioned earlier. The first of these questions you'll find on the sheets of paper that was handed out. If you didn't get any, I'm sure there's extras floating around, and I've got some here too. So, looks like this. This asks you to describe the new era of Unitarian Universalism in 3 words or short 2-word phrases. In this way, we can get an impression of what the new era means to you, and we can identify some common themes that our task force can then build upon. And also, please check on the back of the sheet which stakeholder groups you belong to so we can get a profile of who's been answering the questions, who we've had a chance to hear from. We will collect these responses with some of us here, Bill and I and Shannon will be in the back on your way out. So we'll collect them from you at that point in time. And then what we will be doing is compiling them, and I'm going to create a word cloud. Some of you have seen those word clouds. And we will publish that in our next report in the MidAmerica Messenger. Other questions that we have developed, we will be asking whenever we meet with stakeholder groups. And they are based on the 3 aspects of the Learning Network Covenant Task Force. There's a question about learning. What types of learning partnerships would your congregation seek with your sister congregations? And in these questions, we use the term congregation in the broad sense to mean any covenanted UU community. There's going to be a question about networks. In what ways would your congregation benefit from being in a network of congregations? And there's a question about covenant. How would a covenantal relationship with other congregations deepen your connection and lead to greater learning? The response to these questions will help us to envision ways in which we can be stronger together by learning together. We hope some of you will be among the first to discuss these questions with us at our workshop at 1:30 this afternoon as we explore ways to walk together into MidAmerica's new era of Unitarian Universalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and the entire Learning Network Task Force. I'd like to now call forward Nick Cable from the UU Church of Greater Lansing to present a business item that has been submitted by Congregational Action. Nick?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Cable, and I serve as a ministerial intern at the UU Church of Greater Lansing. As many of you know, one of the things that this body is empowered to do is to bring business resolutions for the consideration of the MidAmerica Regional Assembly. And we've never done this before. And I am grateful to be a part of a cluster of ministers in Southeast Michigan who, responding to the rising Islamophobia and fear that has been kind of permeating our culture the last year, but in earnest, really in the 21st century more strongly, we wanted to think of something that we could do with our congregations to collaborate, how we might move together in this cluster to speak up with Muslim solidarity and inclusion across lines of religious difference. And so the cluster together drafted a resolution that we knew by the bylaws needed at least 5 endorsing congregations, and we have had 10 endorsing congregations in, I think, exclusively the chapter, the former probably boundaries of the district of Heartland, but a lot of other enthusiasm from people who wish they could have voted, but were not. And so I wanted to express that to you and express my gratitude for our democracy in action in amplifying our moral voice together. So, is that good? Great, thank you.
The proposed resolution is on a series of slides that you will see up there. It is also in your delegate packet. And I would like to invite Kathy Lovell forward for just a moment.
Okay, I'm Kathy Lovell, delegate from the UU Church of Greater Lansing. And we are one of the endorsing congregations of this proposal. And I would also like to mention that we have gratefully received support during the last month from the Islamic Center of Greater Lansing. We have been homeless, essentially, between buildings, and we have had our Sunday morning services and religious education classes at the Islamic Center for 4 weeks, and they were very gracious hosts to us. So I would like to move adoption of this resolution as submitted.
Do I have a second? I've got several up, but somebody tell me who. Lee, what? Do you have that? Excellent. So, sorry. I've got a lot of drainage right now, allergy stuff, so I apologize. All right, so in accordance with the rules of procedure, we can discuss this motion. If we have people that would like to line up for pro and con, pro over here, con over here. So that's the con mic over there. Okay. Oh yes, and you have up to 2 minutes for your comments.
I'm Dale Handine. I'm a member of the Wilmer Unitarian Universalist Congregation, Wilmer, Minnesota. I'm also a member of First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis. I think we can rush to a premature blanket approval, shall we say, of Islam with the very best intentions, but until we are willing to engage with Muslim communities about the horrific practice of genital mutilation of girls and be forthcoming about our concern there and supportive about effective change, I think we make a mistake to rush to approval. Recent research has identified Minnesota as the third worst state in the nation for that happening to girls. It's not just something that used to happen, it is something that is happening now. It is not to be compared with breast implants or pierced ears. It is something that ruins a woman's natural elimination of bodily fluid monthly and daily. 2 minutes? 10 seconds. All right, so I say we can't just back off comfortably from that issue and say we want to support Muslim communities until we're ready to do that very difficult work. I don't know how to do it, but we must do it. We can read Ayan Hirsi Ali.
Recognize Lee at the pro mic.
Okay, my name is Lee Banner. I am a member, longtime member of the Unitarian Church of Evanston, and I am Mohammed's father-in-law. So now you know a famous guy. I wasn't going to speak until the previous speaker. A lot of the negative things that are attributed to Islam are actually cultural and not religious. And the genital mutilation thing is one of them. For example, Eritrea is a predominantly Christian country. 90% of the women in Eritrea are subjected to genital mutilation. Ethiopia is a predominantly Christian country, and about 60% of the women there suffer from that. So this is a cultural thing in some geographic locations. It is not pan-Muslim. And I think we need to make that very important distinction.
Do we have any other for the pro or con mics? If not, I invite someone to, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Please state your name and what congregation.
I'm Jim Moyer from the Northwest UU Church in the Detroit area. And I'd like to speak to the issue about having opposition to things that some Muslims might do too. I think the most effective way to deal with that is being in community with them, to be in conversation. And this resolution encourages being in conversation with people. That's the only real way to bring about change, is to make relationships, to make connections with other people. And so I am in favor of this motion.
Yes. Are you planning to go to the con mic or the pro mic? Which?
You always have dead center. Kathleen Watson, People's Church Unitarian Universalist in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My thought is that this is a potential for moving forward from a both-and position in terms of, is it appropriate to support women who are not willingly subjected to this procedure? Absolutely, because mutilation is exactly what it is. And at the same time, we can support Muslims in our communities without saying that we agree with or support the practices that some people in their community may support. So I support this resolution, and I also support doing what we can to start shifting the practice if there's something we can do to change the culture that supports genital mutilation.
Thank you. So seeing no one else at the con mic, I believe we're ready for a vote. Get your voting cards ready. All in favor of adoption, approval of this resolution, please indicate by raising your cards. Thank you very much. Any opposed? I have 1, 2, 3. It's fine. So we have 3 opposed. The motion passes. We have adopted the resolution, and thank you very much for. I want to particularly thank the Michigan cluster for bringing this forward. I'm sorry. Yes. Are there any abstentions? I apologize. Yes. Okay. 1, 2. Yeah. Okay. 2 abstentions. Thank you. My fault. So, let's see. All right. Well, we've come to that point in our meeting where we recognize and honor people completing their service to MidAmerica. I would like to start by asking Kathy Burek to come forward with a presentation regarding one of those people, Nancy Hagee. So, I had Bill written on the script, that's why I paused for a second.
Thank you, Eric. Those of you who were with us last night know that we had a reception at which we presented Nancy with a beautiful crystal star in honor of her service to Prairie Star District, the MidAmerica region, and the broader UUA. As the last president of the Prairie Star District, I can say that Nancy was a bedrock of support and strength and guidance in my role as president, helped keep things organized, helped keep things on track. She was also instrumental in providing the support and the space that we lay leaders from the 3 districts needed in order to do the work of figuring out governance in this region. And we could tell that a lot of the reason we got as much support for this move as we did was because Nancy in particular, but the other staff too, were right behind us. People would kind of look at them and say, they would start talking, and we knew they were looking for the reaction. And if at any point Nancy had said, nah, I don't think so, or even hinted that she didn't think so, this never would have happened. And so we owe a lot to Nancy for that support and that guidance for all of these years. As I mentioned last night, probably Nancy's greatest gift to me personally and to my congregation is helping us to understand what it means to be Unitarian Universalist and be part of a covenanted community, as opposed to sitting by ourselves in our little suburb north of Minneapolis and pretty much ignoring what was going on around us for a good chunk of our history. Nancy helped us grow up, and as I talked to people last night, so many people told a similar story, that there was something that their congregation needed, and Nancy was there. Years back, when Kathy Bowman was president of the district and I was the vice president, we had a strategic planning session, and we decided to do an appreciative inquiry activity. So we said, tell us about a time when the district did something for your congregation. And everybody started their story with, well, we called Nancy and things happened from there. And I think that spoke volumes to me, that Nancy was such an integral part of the congregations in the district. And for those of you who had the nice thing about the MidAmerica region is that those of you in the former Central, Midwest, and Heartland districts got to meet her too, and to know what an outstanding servant of UUA and Unitarian Universalism she has been. I will stop here, and I know Eric has some other things planned. Oh, yes. Harlan Limpert, who is longtime staff supervisor for the regional staff, district staff, and is now the chief operating officer for the UUA, couldn't be with us, but he sent some words by video, which we will share with you now.
Hi, Nancy. How I wish I could be present at the MidAmerica Regional Gathering in person, as I was last year, to honor you for your years of service to the Prairie Star District, more recently the MidAmerica region, and always, always to our larger faith. A connector. That's what I've always seen you as, a connector of people one to another. One of my first memories of you, I recall that as a lay leader at First Universalist Church, Minneapolis, long before I joined the UUA staff, I benefited firsthand from your remarkable ability to pull people together to do good things. I was president of the congregation's board. You had this idea. Wouldn't it be great to get all the presidents of the large churches in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area together on a quarterly basis, just to see what happened? What kinds of relationships might be formed? What kinds of help might one person give to another? What kinds of benefits each congregation might get from having their presidents get together? I had just co-led a $2 million capital campaign, and the leaders of the White Bear Lake Unitarian Church, you may recall, were about to begin their capital campaign. These quarterly interactions sparked conversations so that one congregation could benefit from another. It was the beginning of a great thing. You connected the team that you led. Sarah Green, Phil Lund, the boards of the Prairie Star District, the countless volunteers, many of whom you recruited, as you helped plan the Prairie Star District assemblies in cities like Omaha, Davenport, Kansas City, Ames, Duluth, and others. A connector. You connected lay and professional leaders on staff and in our congregations to create, over a period of years, the MidAmerica region out of which the Prairie Star, Heartland, and Central Midwest districts arose. You were always seen as a voice of wisdom and very often as a voice of sanity for your staff and for the boards. The work you have done, Nancy, will live on. I am grateful. We are grateful. Blessings in your retirement. Enjoy travel, enjoy the kids, enjoy the grandkids, and please know that you made a difference.
If you would like to honor Nancy, if you have a memory of a relationship with her that you'd like to share, if you go out to the exhibit hall to the Camp Unistar booth, we have a guest book that you're welcome to sign. And in Nancy's honor, we are starting a Camp Unistar Family Scholarship Fund to enable families to attend UU Camp. This is one of the best ways that we can keep our young people engaged. So please sign the guest book and honor Nancy with a donation. Thank you, and thank you, Nancy.
Before I let Nancy say anything, I wanted to add to the comments to say that in the short time that I did know her, I became aware of some things. One was that Nancy knew everybody and everybody knew Nancy, and that I could always count on her to give me that little gentle nudge and reminder, did you think about this? Are you sure you have this in whatever thing I would be working on? So you've heard a lot about Nancy, the connector, Nancy, who did all these great things, but I'm here to also tell you about a side of Nancy you may not know. Our board has taken to, when we have our face-to-face gatherings, which is 3 times a year, over a couple of days, on at least one of the evenings, we take the time to play the board game called Quelf. And it involves a lot of very strange things. But one of the things that happens in the course of the game is you may pull a card that tells you have to do a particular thing or some activity. And sometimes it's something you have to do for the rest of the game. Well, we were playing, and the last time that we were together as a board with Nancy, and she drew a card that said, you have to talk for the rest of the game like an angry gnome who is mad because they have burnt their cookies. And she did. And she did not break character the entire game. And I did not know she had that in her. So Nancy, I have a couple of things for you. I have and a cookie cookbook.
Thank you, Eric. If I could remember, I really was mad because my cookies were burned. And at every opportunity, I reminded them about it. I won't do these few words in that voice, but you can imagine it. It was a real honor and a privilege to work with the congregations in Prairie Star District and more recently for the region in the last 20 plus years. It was a pleasure to get to know so many fine ministers and church staff and lay leaders and make friends across so many states. Thank you for your invitations to work with your congregations, because it was always at your invitation that I would show up. Throughout the years when I served on the staff, I also worked with many devoted district and regional board and committee members, as well as our other staff people. And I'm so grateful for all of them, for their support, their encouragement, and for the good work that we did together. I am happily retired, enjoying a more relaxed and less structured schedule, spending time with family, walking for exercise, more than 100 miles of exercise walking in the last few weeks, and reading and attending our own congregation. Life is very good. And I'm also very excited for the new possibilities ahead with the addition of Reverend Sharon Dittmar to the MidAmerica staff. Sharon is smart, she's knowledgeable, personable, and she has a good sense of humor. She will be an excellent congregational life consultant and will serve you well. So for everyone, all best wishes, and again, thank you so much for all the good things we've done together over these years. And thanks for that.
Two MidAmerica board members complete their service this year as well. In June, our treasurer, Tom Summerfield, and trustee, Dave Martin, will finish their terms on our board. Prior to his time on the MidAmerica board, Dave Martin served on the Prairie Star District Board as vice president and was part of the team that worked on the transition to the MidAmerica region. He was also one of the last members of the board who took part in that transition. Dave has been a tireless worker as a board member, and I'm extremely grateful for his willingness to join a work group or volunteer to do some research during this time. Tom Summerfield's steady presence and considered counsel will be sorely missed in our board meetings. We will also miss his musical gifts even more. In our face-to-face board meetings, Tom could always be counted on to lift our attempts at singing a hymn into something approaching music. In addition, both Tom and Dave have my gratitude because they were part of the first MidAmerica Region Board, and as such have helped craft that body as we now know it. Thank you both for your service to the region and to Unitarian Universalism. Would you please join me in thanking them? And would you stand, please? At our 2015 UUA General Assembly, the gathered delegates adopted an action of immediate witness in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. During last year's MidAmerica Regional Assembly, we recognized the efforts of the St. Louis UU congregations in response to the events in Ferguson, Missouri. And so at this year's assembly, I want to recognize efforts of congregations across our region in relation to the 2015 action of immediate witness support for the Black Lives Matter movement and for their work in racial justice. The following congregations have taken some action in the last year to support Black Lives Matter. First Unitarian Church of Alton, Illinois, Beverly Unitarian Church, Chicago, Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois, the UU Church, Rockford, Illinois, UU Community of Hendricks County, Danville, Indiana, UU Church of Indianapolis, Indiana, the UU Church of Tippecanoe County, Lafayette, Indiana, First Unitarian Church, Des Moines, Iowa, Shawnee Mission UU Church, Lenexa, Kansas, UU Church of Lexington, Kentucky, First Unitarian Church, Louisville, Kentucky, Thomas Jefferson Unitarian Church, Louisville, First UU Congregation, Ann Arbor, Michigan, First UU Church of Detroit, Michigan, All Souls Community Church of Southwest Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Grosse Pointe Unitarian Church in Michigan, Marquette UU Congregation, Michigan, UU Fellowship of Midland, Michigan, Northwest UU Church of Southfield, Michigan, First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, First Unitarian Church of Minneapolis, UU Church Unitarian St. Paul, Minnesota, All Souls UU Church, Kansas City, Missouri, Elliott Unitarian Chapel, Kirkwood, Missouri, Emerson UU Chapel, St. Louis, Missouri, First Unitarian Church of St. Louis, Missouri, Second Unitarian Church, Omaha, Nebraska, Fox Valley UU Fellowship, Appleton, Wisconsin, Lake County Unitarian, Hartland, Wisconsin, First Unitarian Society, Madison, Wisconsin, James Reeb UU Congregation, Madison, First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, United UU Congregation, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Sorry, Waukesha? Okay. I'm from Kentucky, I'm sorry. First UU Church of Wausau, Wisconsin, and many more. If your congregation has taken some action and you weren't named, let us know. We want to raise you up. Also, there is a UU web page that you can go to that you can self-identify on a map and populate that. As you can see, there's a portion of our region there on the map. It's actually pretty cool to see. But so let us know so that we can raise that up. Well, one way you can go is to go to that website, and we'll see that you're doing it. But also, you can email at board@midamericaua.org, and that email will route itself to me, and I'll make sure that it gets translated. So, friends, these congregations are rising to this challenge. They have engaged the issues of racial justice, often stepping outside their comfort zones, and have challenged themselves and their communities to do better. Will you please join me in celebrating the work that these congregations have done and honoring their efforts towards racial justice? Thank you. So I invite MidAmerica Region Board Member Dave Barton to come forward and share with us some closing words.
These words from Douglas Taylor. Alone in the world, I was beset with frustration and anger at the world around me. So much injustice and hatred, so little peace and freedom. I longed to make a difference. I struggled against powers and institutions, but my actions seemed insignificant and my words were drowned out. And then I came into community, a religious community of hope and love. And here I found support and energy, vision and power, the authority of shared witness, and together we changed the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Your name? Okay. Do we have a second? Tom Summerfield, second. Yes. Thank you. Get your voting cards ready. This is the most important vote of the day. So all in favor of adjourning, raise your cards, please. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all very, very much. We're adjourned. Yes. Oh, sorry, what?